So we work with business owners of small and middle market businesses to help them get more of what they want out of their business. Most business owners get into business in the first place so that they don't have a boss, really. They're looking for a sense of freedom. And at the same time, they're looking for a sense of accomplishment, sort of that mountain climbing, I made it to the top feeling. And what happens is, as business happens, as they work and deliver and the business grows, they find themselves increasingly trapped inside their business. They're working weekends, they're working on holidays, the frustrations mount, and this can happen even for very profitable businesses. The root cause of this has to do with the business system that the business uses to run. And very often business owners sort of make it up as they go along. So what we do is we come in and, using data-driven tools, best practices, and vetted business systems, we work with the owner and their leadership team to put in place processes such that they end up almost with an owner's manual for their business. So they know how to operate their business. And then using that, we help them put together playbooks so that they know on a quarterly basis and even on a weekly basis how they should be operating their business, both to increase their profitability, which is the reason why they get involved in the first place, but also to work on those things that increase the value of their business. So it's not the case that every business in the same industry with the same net profit has the same valuation. There are many other things that go into determining what multiple is used to determine the value of a business. So again, using those tools, we work with the ownership and the leadership to devise plans and execute plans that are designed to increase that value. The end result concretely is improved profitability, increased enterprise value, and much more freedom, much more peace of mind for the business owner. I got started in business at a very early age. I'm a first-generation American. My parents are immigrants who came here really not speaking any English and without any money and not much education. And after getting started on their life, in order to continue to grow, they found themselves in the food business, which is not uncommon for immigrant families. And over the course of my childhood, I ended up working in many of those small businesses. Very early on, they were really small retail shops. So you can think hamburger places or chicken places or eventually family restaurants. And as my parents grew in their career and I grew in age, those businesses grew. I ended up going to college, and when I came back to from college, I went to work in the family business, which at that point was a light manufacturing commercial bakery that was started in our garage when I was just out of high school. I went to work in that business, and by the time I left 6 years later, we had a 30,000 square foot facility manufacturing desserts for supermarkets, hotels, and restaurants. In that role, in addition to my traditional family role of cleaning toilets and wiping tables and taking out the trash, I also learned a lot about sales and marketing, and even things about process improvement. So my father's approach to improving performance was to yell louder, and that's not really an effective way of motivating people. So I took it upon myself to learn how to bring systems in that increased the performance of the business, the efficiency of the business. The challenge was that and this happens in many family businesses. I was raised by my father to be very much like him, so every conversation became an argument where an irresistible force met a immovable object. So I made the decision to leave the business. I actually moved overseas with my now wife, had to reinvent myself, and I went into high tech. So I had a 15-year career, a little bit over, in high tech, in sales, marketing, strategy, business development. Had some global roles. I worked in startups. I worked in Fortune 500 companies. But I always had this little devil or angel, whatever, sitting on my shoulder, whispering in my ear that I was a fraud because I wasn't in business for myself. So in 2008, I started a marketing agency, started overseas, expanded back into the US since many of my clients were in the US, moved back with my family to the US, and built that marketing agency for about 5 years and sold that business. One of the things I learned along the way was that a lot of the training that I had gotten, sort of informal training that I had gotten in enterprise businesses, and in even some smaller startups, were trainings that you don't get when you get a traditional MBA. And you certainly don't get it if you don't get a traditional MBA. And I felt that had I known many of these things back when I was with the family business, we really could have done things much differently, and we would have saved ourselves a lot of headache. So I took it upon myself to on my own as a solopreneur to go out and work with those small and middle market businesses, because I really knew what it was like to be every kind of person in a business, right? I had been the son of the business owner. I had been the business owner. I had been an employee at every level of the organization. And it seemed to me that if we're going to spend the lion's share of our lives working, our work ought to be one of the most fulfilling things in our lives. It really ought to feel like being in a rock band or being on a championship team or something like that. And I also knew that for most businesses, it's the owner that determines if the environment of the business is going to be that way for everyone involved. So that's where I put my focus, and that's where we continue to put our focus in order to help business owners get everything they want out of their business, but also to create cultures that are fulfilling for everybody on the team. Obviously, I love what I do, and the reason is because I have this driving mission, this goal to help business owners create for themselves and for the people who work for them really fulfilling opportunities in life. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy helping people solve problems. I enjoy learning about people's business, and it's very fulfilling to me to bring my own experiences and the experiences of my current and former clients to help business owners deliver to their family and to the other people that depend on them the kind of life that I wish that everyone could have. So I was recently having a conversation with a client who I began working with about 3 years ago. He had actually purchased his business from his wife's father. The business had been founded by his wife's grandfather, so it was a multi-generational business. He came in, it took him a couple of years to learn the business. And then over the course of 5 years, he brought in his expertise and his experience from his previous life, and he was able to double the business, but he felt like he had hit a ceiling. He just was now spending time spinning his wheels. Every initiative that they tried was falling apart. He didn't really feel that his team was able to deliver the way they had in the past. And I actually met him because he was looking for a COO, to hire a COO. And one of the people that he interviewed had a conversation with him and recommended that he speak to me. So we met, and I heard about his business and understood where he was and where he was trying to go. And I had some ideas. He agreed to work together. So over the course of a year, we put in place a system for operating the business. And it started with what his long-term goals were, what his medium-term goals were, what the short-term goals were, all the way down to how to run each quarter of the business, how to manage their quarterly business review meetings with the leadership team, how to run his weekly meetings to make sure that things were on track, what KPIs to look at as leading indicators so they weren't surprised. They were actually able to predict what the results were going to be in the future. And then, I stuck around, obviously, not only to help put those things in place, but to hold their feet to the fire to make sure they did what they said they were going to do. And they really, it helped them break through the next level, at which point he realized that the people on his team were still good people, but they had some of them had reached the limit of their abilities. They had been people who were promoted because they were good at their jobs, but now they were in management positions. So as part 2 of our engagement, we put in place a management/leadership development program over the course of 3 months to train those people on leadership skills and on personal management skills over the course of a few weeks. And then with the remaining couple of months, again, to hold their feet to the fire, to help those changes in themselves and the culture stick so that we don't need to stick around forever for them to get where they wanted to go. In year 3, frankly, we weren't involved with the business because they had made the changes they wanted to make. They were growing to the next level. And we recently re-engaged because they had more than doubled over the course of 3 years. So much more rapid rate of growth. Their profitability had gone from maybe 7% to close to 20%. So very big expansion in their profitability. But now the owner wanted to re-engage, at least to have some conversations about what might be some opportunities for them to look at in terms of how they might increase the value of their business, irrespective of what's happening on the side of their increased profitability. In other words, what things could they do to their business to make their business more attractive to a potential buyer 3, 5, or 7 years down the road. The biggest mistake that I myself have experienced and I've seen other business owners experience, the toughest lesson is that there's very often someone inside the business who is not a good fit for the business and needs to be let go. And it's a very difficult often for business owners to let somebody go for any number of reasons, particularly if it's a family member. Obviously, there's ways to deal with this, but the biggest mistake I see people make is holding on to someone inside the business way longer than they should. I think the most important piece of advice, the first thing a business owner should think about right after they register their business in their state or provincial office, however that's done, is to think about what their exit is going to look like. Every business has an exit. None of us live forever. We're all going to the same place. We don't get to take anything with us. Either we're going to sell the business, we're going to pass it on to our children, which is going to be done through a sale. We may merge with someone, which is a type of sale, or they're just going to carry us out on a stretcher. It's never too early to think about what you want your exit to look like and to plan the steps from the very beginning that you need to take to get there, so that when the time comes to leave your business, you leave it with the most amount of wealth that you could possibly can. Is frankly, the same challenge, I want to say, that business owners, it's always the biggest challenge. Irrespective of the economy, irrespective of interest rates, irrespective of the labor market, the biggest challenge is actually finding, hiring, and keeping good people inside the business. People talk about it a lot now, in particular because there's a tight labor market, but I've been hearing this for 10 years. It's very, very difficult for people to hire the right people for their organization, train those people, and then 18 months later find themselves either having to let that person go or that person leaves on their own. That's really the biggest challenge. There are definitely ways to prevent this from happening. It takes time. There's things that you can put in place to ensure that you hire well in the first place. There's other things that you can do to keep good people. Some of it has to do with insurance, some of it has to do with pay, a lot of it has to do with culture, which is this catchphrase that has become almost devoid of meaning, but it's a real thing. And if you hire correctly in the first place and you pay attention to the right steps along the way, you can find really good people, you can keep them. In fact, I have a client who one day an entire team from his competitor showed up at his door, knocked on the door, and begged for jobs because they heard what a great employer they were and what a great company they were. So it is the biggest challenge, but it's a challenge that can be met. One of my favorite sayings, quotes, is an old Chinese proverb about war, and it goes, "Strategy without tactics is the slowest road to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat." If you want to grow a business, enjoy the process of growing the business, and exit that business with meaningful, life-changing, maybe even generational wealth, it's not enough to do what seems like the right things. You have to do them in service of a strategy that is designed to deliver to you everything that you want. And you can have everything that you want. You can have your freedom and you can have your money.